Welcome back to the workbench, everyone. Today we're out in the garage at my miter saw to talk about how to make your own hex track modules at home without the use of a laser. You want to find yourself a piece of material to make the module out of. Ideally, to be up to standard, your module is going to need to stand 12 millimeters high off of the table surface. So some material options are plywood. Maybe something like Baltic birch plywood, a plywood that's made of real wood plies, like so. And see the wood sandwiched together in different directions to create this striping. This is 3/8 inch material, which would be actually 9 millimeter material. So I could use this for a hexagon, and then I would need 3 millimeter material underneath for feet, and that would give me my 12 millimeters. So you want to find a suitable piece of material to build the module out of that you have a scrap of that we can use. I guess ideally it would be a 6 millimeter thick material, because we would have a 6 millimeter hexagon and then 6 millimeter feet. Here's an example of a plywood 6 millimeter hexagon. So I could just take the scraps from cutting this hexagon and cut myself some feet, glue them to the bottom, and I would be ready to go with 12 millimeters. So today I'm going to use this scrap of composite board, MDF. MDF I think is preferable of a material to use for this because it's more stable. Not stable like sits on a table and is stable, but stable of a material over a period of time. It's going to be less apt to warp on you. It's going to stay true to being flat. This is actually a piece of like beadboard wall material that I had left over from a house project, but I can use it to make a hex track module just fine. So you want to find a piece of material that has enough, dimension to fit the hexagon you're going to need, and that's going to be about a 12 inch by 12 inch square. I think this is a little short, but it's big enough still. This is about 11 3/4. Here is a laser cut hex track module. And I just need to see that even from point to point, this can fit a hex module, which it can. So, and then I will cut it down to a more manageable size. So if this is 11 3/4, I'm going to cut it into an 11 3/4 square. So I will mark it from the edge to 11 3/4. Here and do it again, 11 3/4. Then I will grab, let me think here, grab a speed square, line it up at my 11 3/4 mark and mark it. And same thing on the other side, 11 3/4. That's perfect. And again, why 11 3/4? I'm just getting this piece of material down to a manageable piece of material for my miter saw. One that's going to be able to fit a hexagon properly. So we'll get things lined up, and I'll bring my blade down. And as I bring the blade down, I'm making sure that the right side of the blade is lining up with the edge of my mark. That way I'm left with the right amount of material. Right there should be good. Go. And then I'm just going to flip it over to finish the cut. Obviously, if you have a table saw at your disposal, that would be the better tool to use for this part. Or if you have a miter saw that has sliding action, that would be great. All right, there we go. So pretty much an 11 3/4 square to begin our work with. Okay, so first cut to getting the hexagon that we need. we're going to be cutting 30-degree angles all the way around this thing. So I'm going to set my miter saw for 30 degrees on my little graduated ring here. Swing it over to 30, right on the dot, and tighten it up. Okay. So to begin with, I just need to make a 30-degree cut with my material flush against my fence, and ensuring that the cut is going to come up, to halfway through the material or beyond halfway through the material. There we go. So there's my first 30-degree cut. Now, what I need to do is make a 30-degree block that I can clamp to this so that I can use it as a guide for cutting the rest of the angles. So I've already done that here with a 2x4. All I did was put the 2x4 in and go ahead and cut that same 30-degree cut, right? That's what you want. Then I'm going to clamp this piece of material the right distance away to get one good side of my Hextrac module. And that side should be 142.6 millimeters, or a little bit less. The Hextrac module, it needs to accommodate a 248 millimeter piece of track from flat edge to flat edge. We like to go with 247 millimeters so that you have a little bit of hangover over the edge. This will allow for the modules to come apart and go together really easily, and it's just a little bit of gap. However, any hexagon that is smaller than that 248 millimeters will work. You just want to get close to that 247 to have as much space as you can to work with for modeling. So that means that the flat edges are going to be 142.6 millimeters long, or about 5.61 inches long. So we need the space from the front edge of this 30-degree cutting block to the saw blade to be that 5.61 inch mark. I think that the easiest way to do that is to take another piece of scrap material and a good measuring implement and marking the distance you need. So like I said, 5.61 inches in my case, or if you're working in millimeters, 142.6 is what you're shooting for. When you're marking pieces to cut at this small of a measurement, and we're talking about what, hundredths of an inch here, or millimeters, I recommend marking your material with a blade, not with a pencil, pen, or Sharpie or marker or something like that. This is going to give you a really thin cut line that you can see to go by. That'll be much more precise than some other marking implement. So 5.61 inches for me. Well, 5.625 is going to be what, 5 5/8. So I need to go just shy of 5 5/8. All right, and I'm going just shy of 5 5/8 with a nice clean mark. I don't know if you can see it here in the video, but I got a nice fine mark at where I want to make my cut. You could swing this back to 0 degrees to make this cut so you've got a flat edge, but I'm just going to leave it on the 30 because it'll be kind of helpful when I get to that point. But I need to bring my blade down, and I need to really see that it's going to cut right along that edge, right along that measurement that I need. Right there, I think looks good. I'm gonna go real slow. For a nice clean cut. All right, now that cut edge should represent the length of the side that I need. I've got a laser cut module right here, and we can double check it. Now remember, to get a working Hextrac module, we're looking for right on the money or just short. We want it being short of the measurement is okay if it's just short, because it'll still work as a Hextrac module. And this is a bit short. I think maybe a little bit too short, but we'll see. We'll go ahead through this experiment and see what we get compared to our perfect Hextrac module. So I've got my little measuring block here, and I've got my 30-degree cutting block right here. So I'm gonna put this in place, and I'm gonna need a clamp for this guy, and I'm gonna bring my blade down. And I'm gonna bring my 30-degree angle on this tiny little piece right in against the tooth of the blade. Just like that. So that looks good to me. So I want my 30-degree block right on the money up against this block, up against this little sizing cut piece. All right, I'll clamp my piece in place. Nice and tight. Now I will double check with my measuring implement here. So I've got this flat edge right against the front of that 30-degree block. And bring my blade down, and it looks pretty good. Now we're set up to get back to our piece of composite board. So we already made this cut here, so you're gonna put your angle right into your jig, right up against it, and we'll make another cut. There we go. Then we rotate, push it right against the fence and the 30-degree jig and cut. We didn't quite make it all the way, but we'll break that off. Rotate again, right against the jig and the fence again, and another cut. Again, rotate, right against both, and cut. I'll just go one more and make sure this final edge is the same. Good to go. All right, there's our perfect hexagon. So let's grab the laser cut module and see how we turned out. Put it right on top, line up the edges. Yeah, I would say we're about 1 millimeter shorter than the laser cut module, which is no big deal. A more efficient or true test would be to grab a piece of track and make sure that we've got a good size hexagon for the track. Yep, so it just hangs over the edge a bit. Just over the edge. And just over the edge. So this is totally viable as a hex track module. Now, what did I get for thickness of material here? Let me grab my caliper. So I'll take my digital calipers here, set to millimeter, and 6 millimeter. Yep, just about 6 millimeter material. So I can take scraps and use the miter saw and cut myself some little squares for feet for this guy. And we'll be good to go to use it as a hex track module. So hopefully this method with the clamped 30-degree block and measuring that edge that you need for one side of your hexagon will help you to create these perfect hexagons that you need for hex track. Just put it against the block, cut, rotate, and keep going all the way around to make yourself a perfect hexagon. All right, have fun.